It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman. You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Love coffee, huh? But wait a minute. It seems like every time you finish a cup of coffee, you get all of these side effects along with it. Heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, acid reflux. As the world's first and only organic acid-free coffee, Tyler's Coffee is able to provide a healthier option in the solution for more than 100 million individuals who have sensitive stomachs or suffer from acid-related modalities. This is Tyler's acid-free coffee. Coffee without the consequences.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hey, this is Ray Powers. Don't touch anything. You've got it right where you need it. Tuned in to the Douglas Coleman Show. You heard me.
David, you are now on the line with Doug Coleman.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, doing good. Welcome back to the show. You were on about 3 months ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you were promoting Daylight, I think, at that time, right?
That's right, Atlee Pine, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, welcome back. Nice to talk to you again. And this time you got a new book called A Gambling Man. How many books do you write in a year?
Probably the last 12 or 13 years has been 2 books a year, spring and fall. A couple of times during that time period I've come up with another book just sort of out of the blue and wrote it. So a couple of years during that span I've had 3 books out, but normally 2 books a year. Our first 12 or 13 years publishing, I had 1 book a year. It would come out started out in the winter, and then as my fan base grew, I started coming out in the fall and around Christmas time.
Does your publisher give you any sort of minimum, like they say, wow, we want at least this many from you? Or are you pretty much free to give them what you want?
Yeah. They at this point they trust me that I know what I'm doing and can deliver the books and all that. And the best kind of pressure is sort of self-imposed. I don't think about deadlines. I don't think about anybody telling me when I'm supposed to deliver the book. It's all about sitting down and having some fun and pretending you're 8 years old again and just kind of winging it and telling a story and one that fascinates you. I try to pick the subject matters that fascinate me, whether it be by characters or plot or both. And if you're having fun writing the book, pretty much guaranteed the reader's going to have fun reading it. If it's slog for you writing it, it's going to be a slog to read it.
Well, that's true. You bring up an interesting point, though, because a lot of people who are aspiring authors probably never get to your level of success. And there's a certain point where authors get famous to the point where there's no pushback. I'm just curious if you said something about self-imposed discipline, because if you were to submit something and your publisher, they wouldn't say, we don't like this one. We're going to reject this. I mean, because they know that your name's on it and it's going to sell for them. So how do you kind of keep yourself fresh and sort of progressing to this one's better than the next one? Or do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely I do. Well, a couple of things that I do. One, I continually create brand new series that I write. Aloysius Archer is an example, set in 1949, so a time period I didn't live and never written about before. So I had to sort of tell a new tale in a brand new era with a brand new character. So there were no formulas. There's no type of, what did I do before? I couldn't ask those questions, not that I ever would. So I try to keep myself fresh and sort of on edge and fearful by taking on new characters, new plots, new stories, going to places that I have never written about before, in time periods I've never written about before. And that's what keeps me fresh and excited. And that's why I think I have so many series going, because when you create a brand new series, it's like fresh and new. And it's, oh my God, I've never written about this character before. I have so much to do. I've got so much to build. It's exciting what I want to do with this person. And that allows me to never grow complacent. The other point is, I learned a long time ago that if the first time you think you know as a writer, you know what you're doing, you might as well quit and go sell insurance or something, because you've lost that edge. The writers that really turn out consistently good stuff over a long period of time are the ones who sit down in front of a screen or a piece of paper and are scared, you're just scared to death. They can't bring the magic again. You should always approach this job as, this is my first novel, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm terrified that someone will finally figure that out. And if you approach your work that way, trust me, it will give you an edge and a lift and an energy and a compassion and just an enthusiasm because you got this chip on your shoulder. And if you sit down otherwise saying, I'm a big shot bestseller, I've written 20 books and they've all been bestsellers and I'm just going to crank another one out, that's when you fall flat on your face. And trust me, I have enough self-respect, so if I turn out crap, I don't give it to the publisher, I just throw it away and start over.
Well, so you can be a good judge of your own work, because not all artists can do that.
No, they can't. But look, I have written enough stuff, and I've had fits and starts where I wrote stuff and it just didn't work, and I know it at a gut level. I know it. It's not good, and it's not what I should be putting out there. And I also have a small, circle of my wife, my agent, my editor, whose opinions I really trust. And they don't always agree with stuff that I write, and sometimes they want me to focus on something else or write something a different way or take something out or add something in. And that's a very professional relationship, and I take their opinions and criticisms very seriously. I don't always agree with them. I don't always do what they ask me to do, but I think about it carefully because I know their goal is the same as mine, to make the book as good as it possibly can be. Okay.
Well, how many of your books have been turned into film? Because I know we talked a little bit about Absolute Power the last time you were on, and that was sort of the big one.
Yes, I've had three.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had three films done, and I've had one television series done. King and Maxwell television series on TNT a number of years ago. Absolute Power, Wish You Well. And I think I'm the only thriller writer who's ever had a movie filmed and shown on the Hallmark Channel, which was The Christmas Train, which is the highest rated movie in Hallmark's history,
wow.
Which was surprising for me. And I'm working with the Village Roadshow. They're a big Hollywood production company, normally does feature film, to turn Memory Man, my Amos Decker series, into a television series. So that's the next one that you might see on the small screen.
Okay, great. Well, your new book is called A Gambling Man. When did that come out?
It came out on Tuesday of this week, so it's brand new. It's the second installment in the Aloysius Archer series. Again, it's set in 1949. He wants to be a PI. He wants to head to California to learn under the mentorship of this guy named Willie Dash. He used to work for what was then a Bureau of Investigations, and now it's called the FBI. And he goes through Reno, and he meets a girl named Liberty Callahan. She's a showgirl, wants to be an actress, so they travel together to California in this 1939 Delahaye Model 165. It's on the cover of the book. It's a real car. It has a right-hand drive because it was built for an Englishman. It's only like 5 or 6 ever made of this car. And Archer gets it through sort of a circuitous events involving a casino and gambling debts. So they drive this really cool car out to California, and then Archer starts working with Willie Dash, and he gets involved right away into a blackmail scheme that turns really very deadly. And off he goes, and his new career is a gumshoe.
Okay, well, it sounds very interesting. That was an interesting time in America, too, I think. You weren't old enough to be around then, were you?
No, but, obviously my parents were, and you're right, it was a fascinating time because it was a transition period for this country. We'd gone through depression, everybody was poor, everybody was, hungry. Then we fought a world war, everybody was sacrificing, people were dying, people were, rationing, and they were sick of it. And the dawn of the new era was 1950, which was, obviously was the start of the Cold War, but it was also people just wanted fun. They wanted a better time. It was happy days, soda jerks and bobby socks and, convertible cars and DuckTales and all that stuff. And so people in America, they uprooted themselves and they started moving to other places around the country because they wanted something better and fresh and new. And they wanted something that wasn't what they just gone through the last 30 years. So that's why I picked the post-World War II era, because for me, historically, as a history buff, it was a fascinating time period for this country.
Well, this has been a pretty bad last year with the COVID. I don't think that most of us have experienced anything quite like that, if you were old enough to be around in 1918, maybe. But
right.
what do you think the next couple of years are going to be like in this country? Are we going to have some kind of a roaring 20s, everybody just partying to forget about COVID once we get the vaccinations done? Or what do you think is going to happen?
I think there's going to be some of that, actually. I think a lot of it's pent up, and I think people want to go out and they want to have a good time, and hopefully we're not going to have a relapse into some other mutant variant of this thing that, is able to circumvent the vaccines. So I think there's going to be part of that. But I do think at another fundamental level, it's going to change how we live and how we work and how we educate. I think that, are people going to go back to the office? I think so, but in a hybrid way. I think it's going to be part office, part working remotely. And that frees up a lot of time, because let's say if you can work remotely, full time, guess what? You can work for a company in New York City and be living in the Midwest. And that opens up a lot of options for a lot of people. And it also opens up, just a different sort of lifestyle where, hey, you know what, if you want to take a nap in the middle of the day, you can. You want to go run an errand at 2 o'clock, you can. You want to go pick up your kids from soccer at 3 o'clock, yeah, you can do that and still get your work done. So people are going to realize they can have a life and not be tied to an office from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 9 every day. So that's going to be a fundamental, Americans are hardworking, and we're used to having this, pedal to the metal, nose to the grindstone. You go into work every day and then you come home and then that's where you live the rest of your life. Now it's going to be more of a hybrid, I think.
Well, I think it's mostly good. The part I don't like is the K through 12 kids staying home all day, online learning. I think that's a disaster waiting to happen.
It's also unfair because it's not a level playing field. Not everybody has broadband and not every home has a computer. So those kids were sort of left out for this last year, and it certainly wasn't fair for them. So that's something that's going to have to be rectified. And I know there are a lot of people thinking about what is the best way to do this. But I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure we're going back completely to the old way works either. And again, it might be some type of hybrid. The fact that kids need to be taught effectively. And I think maybe this is the wake-up call we need where, a lot of schools are teaching just one size fits all. And we know that kids learn all sorts of different ways. So sort of customizing those experiences. Because at the end of the day, we want kids to be successful, because then they're successful adults that can contribute to a society and not detract from society. So if we can educate kids in the best way for them, that is the best way to do it, because then their chances of success and contributing to society are much higher.
Well, I agree. I just think it puts a lot of burden on the parents, because somebody's going to have to stay home if the kids are going to be home during the day.
No, absolutely right. And so I think if it's going to be a hybrid where kids are home some days of the week and in school some days of the week, I know that a lot of other countries have addressed this problem. A lot of parents look, child care is incredibly expensive in this country. Is there a better way to provide child care than saying to one of the parents, hey, you know what, you got to stay home because you don't make enough money. It all goes to child care anyway, so what's that? But you lose about a contribution that person could make to society. And some spouses, moms or dads, want to stay home and stay with their kids and raise their kids, and that's perfectly fine too. That's a critical component of, society. We want kids to grow up to be good and respectful and all that. So it's a complicated problem, and I think maybe the pandemic has sort of jolted us to say, okay, we need to look at this in maybe some more innovative ways, not one size fits all. And let's see what we can do to make sure that we're teaching kids even better than we were before, and sort of, maybe customizing and not being a round peg in a square hole all the time.
Well, it's a good point. This is a good segue right into your foundation called Wish You Well Foundation, which is something you set up with your wife. Is that correct?
That is. We've been doing this for about 20 years, and I got into it because when I first started touring for my books, a lot of my events were sponsored by libraries, Friends of the Library, literacy organizations. So I got a crash course over like 3 or 4 years about the plight of the illiterate in this country and how many there are. About half the adult population read at below acceptable levels of literacy. And we see that in all sorts of societal ills, everything from intolerance to ignorance to racism to poverty to crime. So the Wish You Well Foundation only has one mission, that's to eradicate illiteracy in the U.S. We get probably 5,000 or 6,000 grant applications a year from organizations around the country. We fund as many of those as we can. Last year was our busiest year. We funded more programs and gave out more money last year than any other year in our history, I think, because the pandemic exposed there are two Americas. There are the haves and the have-nots. And, kids, again, who didn't have broadband and computers in their home, they were left behind. Low-wage earners, they still had to go in. They couldn't work remotely. They got sick and they lost everything. Or they were the first ones to get fired and the last ones to get rehired. So a lot of people wanted to upgrade their reading skills. If you can't read at an acceptable level and you don't have really high cognitive abilities because you can't read, if you can't read, you really can't think, as far as I'm concerned, particularly in processing information. You're never going to reach your potential. And I can give you 2 examples of why literacy is so important for us as a society. There are people whose job it is to calculate the number of beds, prison beds we're going to need in the future, and they rely on 2 statistics that are about 95% accurate. The first is 4th grade reading scores. If those scores go up, you need fewer beds. If the scores go down, you need more beds. And the second is high school graduation rates. If more people graduate from high school, you need fewer prison beds. If fewer people graduate from high school, you need more prison beds. And, probably 80% of the people incarcerated today didn't finish high school, and they have below acceptable reading levels, and that's why they've committed crimes. That's why they've gone into that sort of lifestyle. If you get rid of that factor where all of it, they can read at high levels, they can think, they can become self-sustaining, and then the prison populations are going to decline, and they're going to decline rapidly.
So what do you think it would be the first major step we can do in this country? I think a lot of people would be surprised at the illiteracy rate in this country.
I think that sometimes it's how we approach teaching students. We don't put enough money into education, for one thing. Education in this country is based on real estate taxes, and those real estate taxes tend to stay where they are spent. So the wealthier areas have better schools, and the poorer areas have poorer schools. That's just the way it works in this country, unfortunately, for the most part. I look at a country like Taiwan. I know they're much smaller, and it's not apples to apples. Taiwan has almost no natural resources. But the one resource they have are their people. So what they guarantee to their people are a world-class education that's paid by the government. And I'm not saying that we should do that here. And they also have universal health care, so people don't have to worry if they get sick, they might lose everything. And what does Taiwan do with that? They kick everybody's butt across the world as far as business startups, innovation, productivity, and every other classification you want to talk about economically. They punch far, far above their weight because what they've done is they've empowered their citizenry. They don't stick their students with $100,000 and $200,000 worth of student debt, and because of that, your choices of either buying a house or buying a car or starting a business, you can't do it because you don't have you've already got a mortgage and your student debt. Right. Or I can't go out and start my own company because I've got a pre-existing condition and I need health care. And so I can't do that. So that limits them what they can do. A country like Taiwan has said, what, we're going to invest everything we have into our people, and then we're going to go out and have our people compete in a world-class way, and all of us are going to prosper because of it. So I think it's a part of partly focus, it's partly money, it's partly just understanding that this is our greatest resource. It's not coal, it's not natural gas, it's not oil, it's people. And it's our children.
One of the things that I don't like about the inequalities of education in this country is the fact that a Harvard degree pulls more weight than a degree from Joe's University in Iowa. So a community college degree. Granted, a Harvard degree costs a lot of money. So again, the inequity is the rich and the poor. But if they had a level playing field just for the sake of the degree, never mind the money. In other words, the Joe's degree would be just as weighty as a Harvard degree.
Absolutely right. And again, that in a lot of the Ivy Leagues, there are legacy schools too. So, generation after generation go to those schools because their, parent, grandparent, great-grandparents went there as well. So that's a leg up. The schools are very expensive. So a lot of kids who are very talented and bright, unless they get a scholarship, that's not an option for them. And so they go to community colleges or, less well-known colleges. And, if you're an investment banker on Wall Street, a Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan, whatever, and you look at who you can, who you want to hire, you're going to hire people from Harvard and Yale and Cornell because everybody that works at those places, that's where they went. So you're not going to hire the kid from the college, the Podunk College down the road in Kentucky somewhere, because you don't feel like that's good enough. That's skewed, that's bad, that's wrong. And you know what? At the bottom line, economically and financially and statistically and every other way you want to measure it, it's bad. It's a bad business decision because guess what? The kid from the school in Kentucky might go up there and kick the butt of all the kids you hired from Harvard just because they want it more, they work harder, they got fire in the belly. That's what's missed out on that.
Yeah, exactly right. I've always thought that was one of the bigger inequities in our education system, as well as, like you said, the way the property tax situation is with high schools and grammar schools. But I think particularly with the university level, it's so skewed. And I don't think it's fair.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely agree.
Well, I think on that note, we should wrap it up. Do you have a website that you want to give out for your books or for your foundation?
Absolutely. I'd love to get both. So the website for me is davidbaldacci.com, very easy to remember. And that's linked to all my social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and every other platform, none of which I understand, but apparently they are required for my survival.
That's true. You're nobody without social media.
You can go there and learn a bunch. And the Wish You Well Foundation. So it's wishyouvellfoundation.org. It'll tell you about a lot of the programs we financed, results we've gotten, ways for you to donate, and also ways for you to volunteer in your communities and learn a lot about the literacy efforts in this country.
Great. Well, thanks so much, David, for coming on the show and taking time out. Best of luck with everything.
It was great. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Take care, David.
Okay. Bye-bye.